Your boss thinks they're safe because their title is above yours. That's their first mistake. They think power at work comes from the org chart. They think it comes from a line in an HR system that says manager. You are about to quietly prove that power in real life is not the same thing as power on paper. And what's even better is this. You can start out ranking them before anyone even notices you're doing it. That's exactly how Machiavelli would play this kind of game. You don't challenge the throne. You make the throne irrelevant. Let's start with something uncomfortable. At work, you are not being judged on effort. You are being judged on perceived importance. Your boss may not even be good. You know this. You've probably watched them. They miss details, they talk in circles, they act stressed to look valuable. They sit in meetings pretending to align people. But here's why they stay in power, because most people around them still believe they're necessary. That's all it takes. Belief. You want to outrank your boss? You take that belief and you quietly move it to yourself. You become the person the room quietly depends on to keep things stable. Once you do that, your boss can keep the title. People will still come to you first. One of Machiavelli's cold truths is this: the one who solves fear wins loyalty. Your boss's real power is not that they approve things. It's that people believe if they upset your boss, work will get harder for them. Annoy the boss, you get blocked. Please the boss, you get access. So your first play is not to look better than your boss. Your first play is to become safer than your boss. More reliable. Easier to approach. Zero drama. Quietly calm under pressure. You remove fear. That sounds too soft to be power, but it's not soft at all. Watch how this works in practice. Picture this. A coworker has a problem that could become a fire. Maybe it's a client. Maybe it's a deadline. Maybe it's numbers that don't match and could embarrass the team. They have two options. Option one, they go to the boss. The boss will probably react, escalate, and make it loud. Option two, they go to you. You listen, you stabilize, you quietly fix what can be fixed, and you don't make them look stupid. After that happens 3-4 times, do you realize what just shifted? You're now the first call. You've quietly become the point of control. You became the person people trust not to ruin their day. That is authority. That is rank. And you didn't ask for it. You collected it. Machiavelli would call this building dependency. You're making people dependent on you, not emotionally, not socially, but operationally, as in, things move when you say so. When you respond, it calms. When you touch it, it gets done. That is more powerful than manager. Manager can be ignored if people believe going around them is faster. Now let's get deliberate. There are 3 pillars that make a boss look powerful: information, access, and narrative. You're going to quietly steal all 3. Information first. Your boss survives because they control information flow. They know what leadership wants. They know what the team is doing. They sit in meetings you don't sit in. And then they act like translators. Here's what we're doing. Here's the direction. Leadership is very focused on X right now. If you're blind, you have to listen to them. So step 1, you stop being blind. I'll be blunt. You should know more than your boss, and you should know it faster. This is how you do that without looking sneaky. You attach yourself to the bloodstream of the work. You get close to whoever is closest to reality. Not senior management. They live in slides and keywords. I mean the real movers. The person who actually pulls the data. The engineer who actually ships the thing, not the one who talks about shipping. The analyst who actually knows why last month's numbers dropped. The assistant who actually knows who's angry with who. These people are gold. Most people ignore them because they're not important. That's why they talk. That's why they'll talk to you in plain language if you treat them like they matter. Ask them the kinds of questions nobody else asks because everyone else is too arrogant. What's actually slowing us down? If something blows up next week, what do you think it'll be? What's the thing you're doing that no one even sees, but if you stopped doing it, everything would break? You ask that, and then you listen like it's intelligence, not gossip. Because it is intelligence. Why does this matter? Because once you can predict problems before your boss can, you become dangerous in a very quiet way. You'll start saying things like, "We should probably get ahead of that billing error before the client notices," before anyone even brought it up publicly. You'll start flagging risks in a calm, unpanicked way, early with receipts. People will notice that you see around corners. People will also notice that your boss reacts after you instead of before you. And that right there is where rank flips in people's heads. The one who anticipates outranks the one who reacts. Now, access. Your boss's access is their ability to walk into rooms you can't. You're going to build parallel access without asking for permission to be in those rooms. You do this by becoming useful to someone above your boss, but in a way that doesn't trigger your boss's paranoia. Here's where most people mess up. They try to impress the director, VP, whatever, in public. They try to be seen. That gets you killed politically because your boss will feel challenged. You don't do that. You do something smarter. You quietly solve a specific annoying headache for someone above your boss. Something your boss was supposed to be handling but isn't. And you send it up clean, without ego. Example. Let's say leadership wants a basic summary every week of where a project stands, but your boss keeps turning it into a 13-slide presentation full of buzzwords and no clarity. You do this instead. You send a crisp 3-sentence status to your boss first, like, "Here's the thing. Here's what we already handled. Here's what might block us next week." That's it. Eventually, your boss will start copy-pasting your clarity into their updates. Perfect. You want that. Because now, your writing, your framing, your clarity is what leadership is repeatedly reading. Your voice is traveling upward. Your thinking is being carried into senior rooms with your boss as the delivery vehicle. That's access without visibility. That's you sitting in a meeting you weren't invited to through their mouth. Machiavelli would smile at that move. You let your rival present your intelligence as their own while everyone quietly starts trusting the intelligence more than the presenter. Later, something interesting happens. One day, someone above your boss will skip the middle layer and ask you directly, "Hey, can you just send me that summary you did before?" And they will say it like it's not a big deal. But it is a very big deal. That's authority transfer. That's the moment your boss stops being the one who knows and becomes the one copied on the email. That is what outranking looks like in the real world. Third thing, narrative. This one is subtle, and it's where people either become untouchable or get labeled as difficult. Most people have no control over their narrative at work. Other people define it for them. She's reliable, but not leadership material. He's technical, but not strategic. They're good, but not ready. That "but" is how companies keep you in place forever. You are going to write your own narrative, and you're going to make sure it spreads in a very intentional way. The narrative you want is simple. You are the person who protects outcomes. You're not hardworking. You're not nice. You're not loyal. You're the one who quietly makes sure things don't fail. Why is that narrative so strong? Because companies are scared of failure more than they're excited by talent. People in power will keep whoever prevents embarrassment. They'll promote whoever keeps them from looking stupid. That's their survival instinct. Your job is to make it extremely obvious, without bragging, that you prevent embarrassment. Which means every time you clean up chaos, you frame it correctly. Don't say, "I stayed late and finished it." Everyone stays late. That's nothing. Say, "That client was about to escalate, but I got them aligned on the new delivery expectation and they're calm now." That sentence does two things. One, you're showing you didn't just work, you neutralized a threat. Two, you're reminding people there was almost a public problem, and you're the reason it never became visible. That's control of narrative. After you do this enough, people will repeat it for you. If we lose this person, we're exposed. That sentence is power. That sentence means you outrank your boss in actual leverage, because taking you away now looks risky. Now we need to talk self-control, because everything I said so far dies instantly if you feed your ego. The fastest way to lose quiet power is to start acting like you have it. Do not correct your boss in public, even when they're wrong, especially when they're wrong. You only correct them privately, and even then you make it sound like alignment, not correction. Just so you're covered in case they ask, here's the updated number. Not you said it wrong, you are protecting them. You are making them look accurate. Why? Because the moment they feel threatened by you, they will start quietly poisoning you. They will go around saying you're difficult, political, not collaborative. People will believe it just enough to slow you down. You don't give them that opening. This part is hard for a lot of people because when you start getting competence power, you want credit. You want to be seen. You want fairness. That's emotional. And emotional players get played. Control that urge. You are not trying to humiliate your boss. You're making them dependent on you. That is way more dangerous because dependency flips loyalty. Right now, you might think, my boss can fire me, and maybe technically they can push for it. But what happens if you've become the unofficial stabilizer of the team, and your boss tries to remove you out of insecurity? They expose themselves. They lose their safety net. They make the team hate them. They make leadership nervous. They basically tell everyone, I just got rid of the one person who prevented disaster. That's career suicide. They won't risk it, not if you've done this right. See how that works? You stopped being disposable without begging for a promotion. Another Machiavellian angle here. Stop thinking like, I want my boss's job. That mindset is obvious and small. Think instead, I want to be the person people cannot move without consequences. That is a higher level. That's not a role. That's position. That's presence. That's how someone can technically be a senior associate, but everybody, including directors, runs things by them first, just to be sure. You've met someone like that, quiet, not loud, not very flashy, but the company would literally pause if they left. That's not an accident. That's built. Let's go deeper into how to build it. You start mapping pressure points. Every team, every boss, every company has pressure points. Places where if something goes wrong, people above start panicking. It might be revenue forecasting. It might be compliance language in contracts. It might be one flagship client. It might be a dashboard that the CEO looks at every Monday morning. Your job is to identify one pressure point, one, not five, and wrap yourself around it like armor. Learn it better than anyone. Clean it obsessively. Become known as the only person who really understands that thing. That kind of specialization is not small. It's actually the beginning of empire. Because once you become the person keeping a pressure point from exploding, your value stops being hours worked and becomes do not lose this person. That's when you quietly outrank your boss, because they can be replaced with another average manager. You cannot be replaced without risk. And power, at its core, is just this. Who is risky to remove and who is easy to replace? Your boss is walking around with a title. You are about to walk around with leverage. And leverage, even in the smallest quiet form, is what makes you untouchable. Once you start building this quiet leverage, you'll notice something strange. People will begin treating your opinion as if it carries authority, even when your title doesn't. That's your first signal that the power shift has begun. But here's the thing. If you don't manage it properly, you'll trigger resistance. Machiavelli would say the greatest danger to a rising subordinate isn't exposure, it's visibility. The moment you look like a threat, the system corrects itself. So your job isn't just to gain power, it's to disguise it as usefulness. Most people sabotage themselves right at this stage. They start acting differently, giving unsolicited opinions in meetings, correcting others, trying to sound strategic. It's an ego leak. Don't do that. Stay predictable. Keep your tone calm, your questions short, your insights indirect. The art is to make your authority feel inevitable, not announced. Let others realize it before you ever admit it exists. Remember, people trust what they discover, not what they're told. Now let's talk about one of Machiavelli's most underrated rules for modern work, the principle of functional invisibility. It means blending in so well that no one suspects you're quietly directing the flow. The way to do this is to never look like you're leading. When you influence, make it seem like assistance. When you make decisions, present them as clarifications. When you correct mistakes, phrase them as just to confirm. You never push, You guide. You never grab credit. You let others hand it to you out of convenience. The less you seem to need power, the more you'll accumulate it. If you want a practical example, watch how people handle meetings. Your boss probably loves to dominate airtime. That's fine, let them. While they talk, you study the room. You learn who looks bored, who's skeptical, who's just pretending to agree. After the meeting, you follow up with one or two of those people privately. You ask, hey, did you get what they meant about that part? That's not small talk, that's reconnaissance. Those short, informal follow-ups are where influence actually spreads. You clarify confusion. You align people one-on-one. And slowly, you become the translator, the one who helps everyone understand what's really happening. Once that happens, your boss can speak for an hour and still depend on you to make it make sense. That's real power, silent, invisible, and unchallenged. Another powerful tool is what I call the shadow structure. Every workplace has two hierarchies: the official one everyone sees, and the shadow one that actually runs things. The shadow structure is the network of quiet operators, the people others go to before decisions are made. You need to position yourself inside that structure. You do it by mapping patterns. Who delays decisions? Who speeds them up? Who do people complain to when things stall? Those are your real nodes of power. Start providing them value, not your boss. It doesn't even need to be big favors. Sometimes it's just information, clarity, or emotional composure when everyone else is losing it. If you keep showing up as the person who stabilizes, your reputation moves upward faster than any title ever could. There's also an emotional layer here. People in authority often rule through tension. They create uncertainty so others stay compliant. Machiavelli wrote that fear keeps subjects loyal, but in modern offices, fear mostly keeps people silent. You can't counter fear with rebellion. You counter it with predictability. Be the person who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't feed drama, the one who doesn't react when your boss snaps or takes credit. You stay composed, even amused, because you understand it's part of their survival behavior. When others see you handle chaos without shrinking, they start gravitating toward your calm. Emotional control is social gravity. It pulls people in. It's not loud. It's magnetic. Now here's something nobody teaches but every strategist knows. Visibility should be cyclical, not constant. If you're always visible, you're predictable, easy to study, easy to frame. If you disappear completely, you're forgettable. The trick is rhythmic visibility. Step forward when your presence will amplify outcomes, for example, when clarity is needed or something crucial is failing. Then step back right after, before your contribution gets politicized. This creates mystery. People remember your impact but can't pin down your intentions. Machiavelli's genius was that he understood timing better than anyone. Appear at the right moments, vanish at the right moments, and people will overestimate your influence because they can't measure it. Let's dig deeper into how to quietly bypass your boss's authority without open defiance. The most elegant way is through strategic alignment. On the surface, you appear to be perfectly aligned with their goals. You repeat their priorities. You echo their vocabulary, but underneath, you reframe them subtly toward your direction. For instance, if your boss says, "Our goal is efficiency," you might start shaping conversations around efficiency through clarity or efficiency through autonomy. Everyone starts associating your version of the idea with progress. Eventually, leadership starts echoing your phrasing back to your boss. They think they're reinforcing your boss's message, but they're actually amplifying yours. This is linguistic power, the ability to shape how ideas are understood. The one who defines the meaning controls the conversation. But to keep this sustainable, you must understand the delicate art of non-threatening excellence. That's the balance between outperforming your boss and not making them feel outperformed. You can't control their ego, but you can manage its triggers. When you do something impressive, frame it as supporting their vision. I thought this might make your plan even stronger. When they take credit, let them, because they're unknowingly building your portfolio every time they do. The people above already notice who's doing the real work. They just don't say it yet. They're observing consistency, not moments. That's why patience is such a lethal advantage. You're not competing in months, you're competing in perception half-lives. And here's where the long game really begins. The final rule of quietly outranking your boss is to understand that power is not about upward mobility, it's about optionality. Promotions, raises, recognition, these are just carrots to keep you running. Real Machiavellian power is having the ability to walk away without loss. Build your reputation so that if your boss vanished tomorrow, everyone already knows who'd keep things running. That's the moment you've silently become indispensable. The moment you no longer need their title to move the organization. What you're building is invisible architecture, the kind of influence that doesn't announce itself but bends reality around it. And once you've mastered this, titles stop meaning much at all. Because you'll have what your boss doesn't, quiet leverage, the kind that can't be taken, only transferred. And the beautiful irony is, by the time they realize it, they'll still be introducing you as their best person. All while you're quietly running the kingdom from below. There's one last level to this game that most people never reach because it requires you to stop seeing the workplace as a hierarchy at all. To outrank your boss permanently, you have to stop competing within their frame. You have to build a frame of your own. Titles, reporting lines, even promotions, those are the visible levers. The invisible ones are culture, perception, and trust. Machiavelli's final move wasn't to take a throne, it was to make the throne depend on him to exist. You'll do the same thing, but inside your company. Start with culture. Every office has micro-rituals that hold it together. How people communicate, what's praised, what's punished, who gets heard, who gets ignored. Right now, those unwritten rules are being defined by someone else. You're going to start shaping them. Quietly. If meetings are chaotic, you bring structure, not by demanding order, but by summarizing cleanly at the end. Just to recap, we agreed on XYZ. Everyone will start expecting you to do it. If communication is vague, you become precise. If everyone's burnt out, you become the calm one who sets boundaries with grace. These little consistencies become behavioral gravity. People start mirroring you because it feels efficient, not because you ask them to. Once your style becomes the team's rhythm, your boss is no longer leading, they're maintaining what you set. Then comes perception. At work, perception isn't built by what you say, it's built by how others explain you when you're not there. You have to feed them language that's easy to repeat. She always sees the whole picture. He's the one who simplifies chaos. They're the reason deadlines don't derail. Notice these aren't achievements, they're identities. People defend identities because it makes them look perceptive for recognizing them first. Every time you finish a project, instead of boasting results, reflect its meaning. Say, I'm glad we made it predictable again. That single word, predictable, becomes part of your myth. You're not just efficient. You make chaos disappear. No one can compete with that because it's not quantifiable. It's felt. Now, let's deal with trust. The quietest kind of authority comes from being the one person whose motives never have to be guessed. Everyone else is playing angles, trying to impress or protect themselves. You do neither. You act in a way that's self-interested but transparent. You own your ambition without needing to defend it. That's what disarms people. When you say, I want this to succeed because it makes us look competent as a team, everyone understands your gain is mutual. Machiavelli would call this calculated virtue, behaving well not because you're good, but because it strengthens your position. Over time, that turns you into a fixed point in a sea of shifting intentions. And power, when reduced to its essence, is just being the fixed point others rely on. At this level, your influence stops being tactical and starts being structural. You don't chase approval anymore, you shape what approval means. Your boss might still get credit, but the organization now unconsciously measures leadership by your standards. You'll see it in small ways. People using your phrases, copying your tone, defending decisions that sound suspiciously like yours. That's when you've transcended their authority. Because even if they left tomorrow, their replacement would inherit your system. That's permanent power, the kind that survives personnel changes. But I'll warn you, sustaining this requires discipline. The higher your unseen power rises, the more temptation there will be to expose it, to finally get recognition, to show people what you've been doing behind the scenes. Resist that urge. Power is most stable when it's half believed. If people ever become fully certain you're the one in control, they'll start reacting to it, defining themselves against it. Keep them uncertain. Keep them grateful. Never let them feel managed, only supported. So, how do you measure success here? Not in promotions, not in titles, not even in praise. You'll know you've outranked your boss when people start adjusting their tone before they speak to you, when meetings pause until you've weighed in, when your boss begins repeating your points as if they were their own and no one corrects them because everyone knows. They just don't say it out loud. That's when you've become what Machiavelli prized above all else, the invisible ruler, the one who governs without needing a crown. And maybe that's the greatest irony of it all. In a world obsessed with being seen, you'll win by being unseen. You'll make influence feel like air, everywhere, essential, and impossible to grab. When your boss brags, let them. When they take credit, nod. Because deep down, you'll know they're performing leadership. You're practicing it. And that difference, though quiet, is the only one that truly matters.